Hi, Alicia here. I'm going to talk a little bit about intermittent fasting. Since the day after Christmas, I have lost 35 pounds. Today is June 4th, 2019, so it has been a little over 5 months. And a lot of people are asking me how I've done it. And I really feel like the science behind this is pretty fascinating. So I want to share. Hopefully, it'll help some other people. I know when I first started intermittent fasting, one of the things that kept me motivated was I would search and I would look for progress pictures and any videos I could find of people who had done it before, to learn what their journey and their experience was like. So I do kind of feel it might be helpful to other people for me to share my experience. So that's what I'm going to do now. So what is intermittent fasting? Essentially, fasting is any time that you're not eating. And people will do it for a variety of different reasons. A lot of people will do it for religious reasons. Pretty much every major religion in the world prescribes fasting at some point. So if fasting is a period of not eating, intermittent fasting is when you have certain eating windows during a day. So you might have one of the pretty common ones is what they call a 16-8. So it's 16 hours of not eating, and then you have an 8-hour eating window. And what a lot of people will do in that case is they'll skip breakfast. So it includes the fasting part includes when you're sleeping. So they'll have, say, their last meal at 8 p.m. They'll begin their fast, and then they'll start eating anytime after noon. And there's a whole theory behind this, and the science is really quite fascinating. So I sort of heard about this word of mouth from people who had tried it, and it worked really well for them. And my husband wanted to do it, and I thought he was crazy. I thought he had some sort of scheme to do fasting or any kind of diet where he could have soda. I thought that's what this all was about. But his dad had tried it. His dad had done really well with it. And my husband really wanted to try it. And he's been really supportive in the past of things that I wanted to try. So I said, yeah, we'll do it together. I really didn't expect it to go anywhere, and it's changed everything for me. So the theory behind intermittent fasting has to do with weight gain is a hormone issue, not a calorie issue. And I'll link up to a video. Dr. Jason Fung was one of the doctors that I researched quite a bit, his theory. And so pretty much everything I've learned has been based off of what he has said. But the idea is that you have two states, feasting and fasting. So feasting is when you're eating, and fasting is when you're not eating. So when you eat, your body, anytime you eat anything, your body has an insulin response. So when you eat carbs, your body has quite a large insulin response to carbohydrates. It has a rather moderate, much lower response to protein, and it has practically no response to fat. So the idea behind the insulin is that your body can either store fat or burn fat. It can't do both at the same time. And insulin is the hormone that tells your body to store fat. So anytime you're in an insulin state, when your body releases insulin, it can't burn fat. And we've been given this advice by our physicians and our government and pretty much anybody who's given diet advice in the last 20 years that we should eat 5 or 6 small meals a day to keep your metabolism up. But the problem with that is every time you eat, you're producing an insulin response and your body's storing fat, so it can never burn the stored fat. So, I feel like that's how we've gotten into this trap. I know for myself personally, ever since I went to college, since I was 18 or 19 years old, I have been trying to lose weight, and I have been very diligent in doing what I've been asked to do, but I just kept getting fatter and fatter. I was over 200 pounds around Christmas time, and I've lost 35 pounds so far. And everything in my life is better. Things that weren't even on my radar. My complexion is better. I sleep better. I breathe better. And yeah, my clothes fit better and I look better too. My hair is more manageable. Like, I still haven't figured that one out. I went to the dentist and they said my gums are healthier. I'm overwhelmed by the number of ways that my life has improved that I didn't even think were related to the way I was eating or could be related to the way I was eating. My heartburn is gone. I used to have heartburn nearly every day, and that's pretty much eliminated. So there have been a lot of benefits for me. So when your body is in an insulin state, it's storing that fat, and it can't burn it. So when you have a period when you don't eat, it allows your liver to deplete its glycogen stores. And once those glycogen stores are depleted, then your body turns to stored fat. And that's what our bodies are supposed to do. And back hundreds of years ago, people didn't have access to food every day. I mean, can you imagine 3 meals a day with cavemen, right? Like, you wouldn't have time to do anything else if you were trying to, in a primitive era, collect food, prepare food, and clean afterwards, or whatever you would need to do afterwards. There wouldn't be time, right? And where would you find the food? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So, and even back as far as the 50s and the 60s, they didn't eat as frequently as we eat now. They had 3 meals a day, but they wouldn't have the snacks. So they would, maybe finish dinner, 6 p.m. and not eat until 7 or 8 a.m. So that's 13 or 14 hours of fasting right there. And it's not uncommon now, for people to eat right up till bedtime, and then they eat when they first get up in the morning. So you're maybe eating at 9 and eating again at 7, and that's only 10 hours. So with the fasting, your body needs to deplete the glycogen stores to burn that fat. So the longer you're able to fast, the more fat you can burn. And really there are 2 ways that you can optimize this, right? So you either have a period of fasting where you're not taking in food and creating an insulin response. And the other sort of hack is you can not eat carbohydrates. And if you have a high fat, moderate protein diet with low to no carbs, you're going to stay in a state of ketosis most of the time, which again is burning that fat, burning of ketones. And ketoacidosis is a totally different thing, and that's where you have an excess of ketones in the blood. And that can change your blood pH, and it can be very dangerous. And I do want to stress that I'm not a physician. This is not meant to give medical advice. And anytime that you take a new diet, you should speak to your physician. So please don't take this. This is not meant to provide medical advice or treat or cure any disease. So basically, you can reduce your carbs and increase your fat intake. And again, you're going to want healthy fats, no trans fats. Trans fats are going to cause you other issues. But if you are really, what you want to do is manage your insulin levels, and especially for diabetics. With diabetics, you're in an insulin state so much that the body becomes used to it, and you need more and more insulin because your body's becoming resistant to it. You need more and more insulin in order to bring the blood sugars down. And the more insulin you have, the more your body's saying store fat, store fat, store fat. So the weight goes up, and then you become more insulin resistant, and it's sort of a vicious cycle. So the 2 ways that you can reduce the amount of time that you're in an insulin state so that you can access that fat to burn it is going to be reducing carbs. And that's why keto and intermittent fasting work so well together. You're optimizing both sides of the equation. And then the other one is leaving more time in between when you're eating, and that is going to allow your body to access those fat stores. Now, say you currently have an 8-hour eating window, it's okay to just increase it by a half an hour each day until you get to where you need to be. Um, I would not recommend doing keto and intermittent fasting at the same time, starting them at the same time. It's going to be very difficult. There's a lot of um, hormone issues. So when you start intermittent fasting, usually the first couple days are pretty hard. And the reason for that is there's a lot of hunger hormones. So your body wants to eat when it's used to eating. And Jason Fung has some really great charts. His videos are a little technical. I'm an engineer, so I sort of eat that up, and I understand they might be dry to somebody else. I find them extremely fascinating, though, and I will link to him probably pretty often, and I'll put some of my favorite videos in the show notes here. But he has some really great charts, and they'll show like your ghrelin, your hunger hormone, and it'll, at 8 a.m. it'll come up, and then it drops back down, and then at noon it peaks again, it comes back down. So hunger comes in waves. And if you just stick it out for a little while, you'll be hungry for a little while, but then it'll go away and you won't feel hungry for a while. And after a couple days where your body hasn't been fed at the times it expects to be fed, it does adjust. And so you won't feel as hungry at that time of the day going forward. So in my experience, I found after a day or two, it was actually pretty easy, and the habit was the hardest thing to break. I'm accustomed to eating lunch with my colleagues at work, and it's this time of day, and that's what's happening right now. And for me, I just took my knitting and I socialized. And the hardest part was they kept trying to give me their food, right? I work with some pretty awesome people, and they were concerned that I was going to be hungry or uncomfortable. But the truth is, it really wasn't that hard. I'm not much of a natural breakfast eater. I've never really liked eating it. And honestly, the only reason I started eating it was because I thought that's what I had to do to lose weight. It never worked. And so I found that pretty easy. I do like to drink coffee. And you can have water when you're fasting, black coffee, or black tea. It can be green tea or white tea, but not with cream and sugar. Some people will say you can have small amounts of heavy cream in your coffee or your tea, and the idea is that it's the more fatty stuff. So if you have like your low fat or your skim milk, a lot of times that's going to have more carbohydrates, and so you want fewer carbohydrates and you want more fat in that, because the fat is going to make you feel satisfied and it's going to not provoke an insulin response. And so it's totally okay if you want to do intermittent fasting and you don't want to give up carbs, you can eat what you want during your eating window. So a few of the things that I noticed when I started intermittent fasting. So I found that when I was intermittent fasting, I couldn't eat as much as I was used to during my eating window. So I started with an 8-hour eating window. I would fast for 16 hours. I would eat. We started between 10 and 6. And my stomach shrank, and I couldn't eat physically the amount of food. So I had, for probably the first week or so, I would be very uncomfortable because I would put on my plate the amount of food I was accustomed to. And, that whole eyes being bigger than the stomach, I would feel that this is my chance to eat, and I'm not going to get another chance until tomorrow. And so I'm really hungry because I haven't eaten all day. And I found pretty quickly I could not eat as much as I was used to eating once I began fasting. The other thing is, and it took a while. It took a couple days to adjust that habit, because I would have that uncomfortably full feeling, like what you might feel after Thanksgiving. And I would feel very tired after eating, because same idea with the Thanksgiving, that I've taken in a lot of food and it was more than I needed. But I'd say like within a week or two, I just sort of organically adjusted my portion sizes when I was serving or preparing my plate. The other thing is, sometimes at work I would find it really inconvenient to eat right at noon. I'd be in the middle of a project, or I'd be in the lab and gloved up, and it would be really a lot more work to stop at that particular time and come back later. So I usually would just work through. So I might not eat until 1 or 2 when I had finished my project, that I was working on at that moment. Or I'd find that it just wasn't convenient for me to eat, or if I wasn't hungry, I wouldn't force it. So I found, and then also, I prefer not to eat until noon. And my husband and I started it together, and he wanted to eat 10 to 6. So I wouldn't eat after 6, but I also wouldn't start eating till noon, just because I don't eat at 10 at work. I'm doing other things. My job's a little different than his. He likes a morning snack, but that didn't always work out for me. In fact, often it wouldn't. So it didn't take too long, and I was really eating within a 6-hour eating window. It was 12 to 6, because we'd have our dinner together at home at night. And honestly, if I've eaten dinner at 6, I'm not hungry again in the next 2 hours. So even though technically I could eat something, I wouldn't be hungry anyway. So it didn't take long for that window to shrink. And then again, if I was only really eating within a 6-hour window, my body was accustomed to eating within a 6-hour window. So I found that I wouldn't be hungry at noon. Well, my husband and I take turns picking up the kids from school after work. So generally every other day I'm home by 3. And then the other days of the week I'm home by 5. So one of the things that I found was, maybe at work it's convenient for me to eat at 1:30, but I'm leaving soon to get kids anyway. And I would just postpone and wait until I got home. So I get home at 3, and I'd be like, oh, I haven't eaten all day. I must be hungry. And I would very much be looking forward to food, but I wouldn't want to wait for dinner. So I would prepare myself some food, and I would eat it. And then I would find that at dinner time, I was already stuffed. I couldn't eat anymore. And then by the time 6 o'clock rolled around, or even 8 o'clock, I wasn't hungry. So I felt like I couldn't take in, like you go to a buffet and you're like, I couldn't eat anything else if you paid me. So I would feel like that. And then it didn't take long for it to very organically go down to 1 meal a day. And I felt perfectly satisfied. After, I'd say, like the first week or so, I really didn't feel hungry outside of my eating window. And the weight was just falling right off. I at one point made a keto recipe, and at this point I was down to 1 meal a day. I didn't realize it was a keto recipe at the time, really. It was taco soup. I mean, I love tacos, and taco soup sounded amazing, so I wanted to try it. So I did. And I cooked up a big batch in the Instant Pot. I love my Instant Pot. And my family doesn't eat leftovers, and the kids don't really, soup doesn't sound exciting to them. They like tacos, but they were kind of a little standoffish about it. So, and even then, after the first day, they're not going to eat it anyway. My husband's not really big on leftovers either. So I had this big pot of taco soup, and I was the only one who was eating out of it, and I was only eating once a day. So it took me like a week to finish it, and I had like a horrible headache that week. I really didn't feel good, and at the end of the week, I kind of realized, oh, I think I'm in ketosis. That was a keto. When I went back and looked, I realized it was a ketogenic recipe, and I had sort of accidentally gone keto, which is sort of probably the best way to do it, because by the time you realize it's happened, it's already done. So anyway, and I had mentioned to one of my friends that I had done that, and he had said, oh, I do keto once in a while, just to keep my weight under control. And no, I do it for like once or twice a year for a week or 2 or whatever I feel I need. And he had said that it's really effective at losing weight very quickly. And so I kind of thought about it, and I was like, well, I'm in this state, I might as well hang out here for a while and see how it works. And he wasn't wrong. It was very effective. I was losing quite a bit of weight, actually. I want to say maybe up to 5 pounds a week. And in the beginning, it's a lot of water weight. and your body's flushing out that water. So, but I'd say probably an additional pound or two a week above what was happening with the intermittent fasting. And I have some charts. I'll put a chart in. You can kind of see when the slope changes on my weight loss chart. You can kind of see that's where I had started the keto. And you'll also see some flat parts, and that's where I was on vacation. So when I go on vacation, I live it up a little bit. I eat what I want, and then I do try to keep it within the 8-hour window. So we went to Florida for 2 weeks, and I felt stuffed the whole time, and I actually felt kind of bad because I was eating way more than my body wanted. But I was on vacation, and I kind of wanted to try some of the different foods and have some snacks just because I could. I felt like it was an appropriate time. But we were gone for 15 days, and I came back, and I actually had lost like a pound, I think, or 0.8 pounds. It was around there somewhere, so I hadn't gained weight. I actually had lost a small amount of weight over that period. But I didn't have access to a scale while I was gone, so that's why you'll see the flat line. And then I went out again for a wedding back to Florida a couple months later. And then we did take 2 days, and we went to Disney for 2 days. And in that case, I did eat a lot of, I had been ketogenic, and I ate a lot of sugar because I wanted to try some of the desserts. And in that case, I think I came back maybe 2 pounds heavier, but I think it flushed out eventually. And then when I came back, I didn't really feel like I wanted to get back into the dieting right away. I kind of wanted to take a break, so I made really good progress. And at that point, I started eating 2 meals a day, and I did have some carbs. I was still much lower carb than I had been before, but I didn't feel like I had to cut them out altogether. And I kind of wanted to experiment a little bit to see if it would make a difference. Like, would I be able to just maintain the weight eating this way? And I did. I'll show you the chart. It was pretty flat. I mean, I'd go up and down a couple pounds, but overall the trend was quite flat. And then when I felt, because honestly I felt like I was eating more than I wanted to. So when I did get back into, and I wouldn't even say, I just shortened my window and I reduced the carbs a little bit further because I decided I did want to start losing weight again. I actually had to buy new pants. My pants didn't fit and they kept falling down. So I'd constantly be tugging on my pants all day to keep them from falling down. And I was like, enough is enough. And my husband lost a bunch of weight, and he just looked like MC Hammer in his baggy pants. And I told him, go buy pants. Like, I don't care if we have to buy more later. You should look like you have pants that fit you. So then I kind of was like, well, I should apply the same rule to myself. So I did go out and I bought some pants, and I was wearing a size 14. I probably should have been wearing a size 16 because they were way too small, but I was reluctant to go buy bigger pants. I didn't want to spend the money. So then when I started losing the weight, the 14s fit really well, and then they were really big, and I was a little surprised because I went to try on pants, and I needed a size 10. So I thought maybe I'd go down into a 12, but the 12s really were too big. So I was in these size 10 pants, and I was very concerned that they would get too tight. So I wanted to have like a little bit of breathing room, and I wanted to start losing some more weight, just to give a little bit of space, but also to get closer to my goals. I do still have quite a ways to go. I think I have to lose another 25 pounds to get into normal range, the high end of my normal range. So for my height, according to the BMI guidelines, I should be somewhere between 105 and 141, which is quite a big range. But to get down into that normal range, I still do have a ways to go. And even though I look a lot better, I'm very pleased with the way I look. My main goal was to look normal. I wanted to look normal. I didn't want to look fat. So I feel like I have gotten to the point where I look normal. I'm less concerned about how I look than I was before. I don't mind people taking pictures of me now. I did before, and I will put up some pictures if I haven't already in here so you guys can see the difference. But I do want to get back down into the normal and healthy range. A lot of the extra weight that I carry is in the midsection, which is the bad area to be storing fat. I guess that's enough for today. I don't know. I could talk about this for hours. My plan is to do some videos. So today we talked a little bit about what intermittent fasting is and what it means, what the theory is behind how the hormones work, and how calories are less relevant. I do not track calories at all. I shove whatever calories down my gullet. I eat whatever calorie. I don't count them at all. I feel like they're not that relevant to the human body, and I think that it's convenient to want to measure energy, and calories are a function of energy, but that doesn't mean that that form of energy is relevant to the human body. The way we measure calories is we take something and we burn it, and we measure the heat it gives off. Well, I can combust wood, but I can't eat it and get nutrition from it. The human body can't break that down. So, and there is absolutely no question that 100 calories of soda is more fattening than 100 calories of broccoli. There's no question. Like, it's common sense, right? Like, we all understand that. So I feel like the different macronutrients are different, and the body is going to process them differently. So I don't count calories. I do pay attention to carbs, because I know that those macros have an effect on insulin, and I feel like insulin is more relevant. I will say I've been trying to lose weight my entire adult life, and as soon as I heard about this theory and researched it and applied it, I've lost weight when I've intended to lose weight. And when I stopped or paused what I was doing, I maintained weight. But I didn't gain weight, but I also haven't gone back to doing what I've done before, which was the high carbs and the frequent eating. And I don't expect to ever go back to that. I didn't feel good when I did that. I didn't like the way it made me look. I didn't like the way it made me feel. And I don't feel it was healthy. So I think that we just have been given some misguided advice as far as, what we've been told to do to lose weight. And everybody, I think people try it, and I don't think that people are weak, or that the United States as a whole has just collectively, 2/3 of the population has no willpower, and most people fail, and the people who do lose weight gain it back. But I feel like this is something that I can maintain, and I feel like this is sustainable, and I just feel so much healthier. I have more energy. Like, my house is cleaner because I have more energy at the end of the day, to do things and to actually, I think I'm driving my husband a little nuts because I'm like, oh, I want to do this project and that project, and I talk about projects a lot, but now I'm actually doing them because I have so much more energy. So to some extent it's good because I'm getting stuff done, and I think he's happy I'm getting stuff done, but to some extent I think he's kind of like, leave me out of your projects. I don't want to do that. And maybe I have a little more energy than he does at this point. So I'm going to conclude for today. I will have more videos, so watch for more videos, and let me know what your questions are. What do you want to know about my journey with intermittent fasting? I mean, I could talk about my eating windows, what sort of foods I eat, what I eat when I go out, how I manage my windows, any digestive issues that you guys are curious about. Let me know what your questions are, and I'll answer them as best I can regarding my experience. And again, I'll link up to some resources. So my favorite resources when I was looking into this way of life and how it would work and what to do, Dr. Jason Fung was the first one I found, and I love listening to him. He speaks to my technical side. I know he might not be for everybody, but he does have some videos that are more toward the layperson, but some of the videos I watched were him presenting to other doctors and other practitioners, and those were a little more technical, but that's the way I'm used to receiving information, so that was a format that I liked quite a bit. But I'll try to link some of my favorite videos for him. Dr. Eric Berg is another one who will talk about intermittent fasting and ketogenic diets and does a very good job of explaining it. And my other favorite is Dr. Ken Berry, and he also has similar topics that he covers and does a really good job. And if you follow particularly Dr. Berg and Dr. Berry, they talk quite a bit about a range of health issues, and a lot of them is really stunning as to how intermittent fasting and or a ketogenic diet can affect that. So I'm not going to cover the ketogenic diet so much in this channel. However, I do have a little bit of experience with it, so I might refer to it from time to time. My focus is more on the intermittent fasting. But again, let me know what your questions are. If you enjoyed this video or you found it useful, please give a thumbs up, like the video, and hit the subscribe button. And then you will know when I post new content. And if you hit the bell, then you'll get an alert when I post new content, so you'll know right away. And thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you tuning in. See you next time.